I need to stop for a moment, because there's something I've been carrying inside me for a long time, and I don't know how much longer I can keep it to myself. You're here, listening to me right now, and maybe you don't even realize how much that means. Maybe you don't know that every time I see someone like you, someone who actually stops, who actually listens, who actually cares, something in my chest does this thing. This quiet, aching thing that I've never quite been able to explain. And today, I want to try. I want to try to explain it, even if I stumble over my words, even if it comes out messy and imperfect. Because you deserve honesty. You deserve someone who looks at you and doesn't look away. There was a time in my life when I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I knew exactly what I was looking for, exactly what kind of person would make me feel whole. I had this picture in my mind, clear as anything, of who she would be. And then life, the way it always does, quietly laughed at my certainty and handed me something I never expected. Something that shook me in ways I still feel, even now, even as I'm talking to you. She came into my life the way some things do, not with a grand entrance, not with fireworks or noise. She came softly, the way rain comes before you notice the clouds have changed. I remember the first moment I saw her, and I remember thinking, I remember this so clearly it almost hurts, that I had never seen someone carry themselves with that kind of quiet grace. There was something about the way she moved through the room, like she wasn't trying to be noticed, like she had nothing to prove to anyone. And maybe that's exactly why I couldn't stop noticing her. We started talking, and you know how sometimes you talk to someone and the words are just words, polite words, surface words, words that fill the space between two strangers? This was not that. From the very first conversation, she said things that made me feel seen. Not admired, not flattered, seen. There's a difference, and if you've ever felt it, you know exactly what I mean. She asked me questions that no one had ever thought to ask. She listened in a way that made me want to keep talking, keep sharing, keep pulling out all the things I'd buried deep, because I didn't think anyone would want to hear them. I started looking forward to every conversation. I started checking my phone in a way I hadn't done in years. That hopeful, almost embarrassing way where you pick it up and put it down and pick it up again. I started smiling at strange moments, in the middle of ordinary days, because something she'd said would come back to me suddenly, like a song you can't get out of your head. And I genuinely truly thought, that maybe this was it. Maybe this was the beginning of something I'd been waiting for, without knowing I was waiting. But then something happened. Something small, something that should have been nothing, but turned into everything. She mentioned her age, casually, the way you mentioned the weather or the time, just a number, dropped into conversation like it didn't matter. And to her, it didn't matter. But to me, in that moment, the room went very quiet. Because the number she said was not the number I had assumed, not even close. And I sat there, holding that information, feeling something shift inside me. Not a collapse, not a falling apart, but a shift. Like the ground beneath me had moved just slightly, just enough to make me uncertain of my footing. And here is where I need you to understand something. Here is where I need you to really listen to me, because this is the part that matters most. It wasn't about the number. It wasn't about the age itself. It was about what it meant, what it changed, what it suddenly made impossible. There are people in your life who are meant to be one thing for you, and when circumstances rearrange themselves, when reality draws a line you weren't expecting, you are left holding all these feelings that suddenly have nowhere to go. That's what happened to me. I had feelings that had nowhere to go. I want you to imagine, and I'm asking you specifically, you who is listening right now, I want you to imagine building something in your mind. Not just a dream, but a real detailed breathing thing. A thing with texture and warmth. Imagine spending days, maybe weeks, adding to that thing quietly, carefully, the way you tend something you hope will grow. And then imagine being told, gently, simply, without any cruelty, that the foundation was different than you thought. That what you were building was built on ground that wouldn't hold what you imagined. How do you put that down? How do you set it aside? How do you look at something beautiful and remind yourself that beautiful isn't always enough? I kept talking to her. I want you to know that. I didn't pull away, didn't become cold, didn't make her feel like she had done something wrong, because she hadn't. She had done nothing wrong. She was simply herself, simply honest, simply exactly who she was, and there is nothing in this world I respect more than that. But something between us had changed, even if only I could feel it. There was a new tenderness in how I spoke to her, a new carefulness, like I was holding something fragile that I knew I couldn't keep. And do you know what the hardest part was? The hardest part wasn't the letting go. The hardest part was realizing how much I didn't want to. The hardest part was sitting with the ache of something unfinished, something that never got the chance to become what it could have been. There is a specific kind of sadness that lives in the space of what might have been, and I don't think there's a word for it in any language I know, but I truly believe that you understand it, because you felt it too. I can tell by the way you're still here, still listening, still leaning in. You know what I started thinking about in those quiet days after? I started thinking about all the women who have ever listened to me, all the women who have ever given me a piece of their time, their attention, their care. And I feel something so overwhelming about that. Because to give someone your attention, real attention, is one of the most generous things a human being can offer. And you right now are giving me that. Do you understand how rare you are? Do you understand that what you carry inside you, that capacity to feel, to empathize, to show up for something emotionally, is not a small thing. It is not ordinary. It is extraordinary. She taught me that, without meaning to, without knowing it. She reminded me that the most profound connections are not always the ones that last the longest. Sometimes the shortest chapters contain the most important sentences. Sometimes someone walks briefly through your life and, without staying, changes the way you see everything that comes after. I found myself thinking about her for weeks, not with bitterness, not with longing in the painful sense, but with this soft, warm gratitude. Like a song you heard once in a place you loved and can still hear clearly even years later. I would think about the way she laughed, this completely unguarded laugh, that she seemed almost surprised by herself, like she hadn't expected something to be that funny, and was delighted by the surprise. I would think about the way she looked when she was thinking, that specific stillness that settled over her when she was really turning something over in her mind. Small things. The kinds of things that don't matter until they do. The kinds of things you only notice about someone when you're paying attention the way I was paying attention to her. And here is something I need to confess to you. Something I've never quite said out loud. When I think about the women who have moved me most in my life, the ones who left something behind in me, a changed piece of something, a new understanding, they were never the loudest ones in the room. They were never the ones performing or competing or trying to make an impression. They were the ones who were just present. genuinely, fully present. And I wonder sometimes if you, specifically the woman listening to this right now, I wonder if you know that you are that kind of woman. I wonder if anyone has ever told you that your presence matters, that the way you pay attention to things, the way you feel things, the way you carry your own private world inside you, that all of that is something someone would be incredibly lucky to be close to. She never knew how much she meant to me. That's something I carry. Not heavily, not like a burden, but like a quiet truth I return to sometimes. She never knew that she was the kind of person who makes other people want to be better, not through pressure, not through expectation, but just through example, just through being who she was, fully and without apology. And I think the greatest gift one person can give another is exactly that. Not advice, not direction, just the example of someone living honestly, feeling honestly, being honestly themselves. There are days when I still think about that conversation where she said her age so casually, so lightly, and I think about how in that moment the entire shape of something shifted. And I don't say this with regret, not anymore. I say it with wonder, because life is constantly doing this, isn't it? Constantly showing you something beautiful right before it shows you why you can't have it the way you wanted it. And I've started to believe that there is a reason for that. I've started to believe that sometimes you are shown something not to keep it, but to understand something about yourself, to understand what you are capable of feeling, to understand the depth of your own longing and what that longing is really reaching for. What I was reaching for, I think, was exactly this conversation, this moment between us, you and me. Wherever you are right now, whatever you are doing, whatever brought you here to listen, I was reaching for the chance to speak honestly to someone who would really hear it. And maybe that's you. Maybe you're the reason I had to go through everything I went through, not to find her, but to find the words, to find the artist, to find the honesty, to find the version of myself that could speak like this, openly, without armor, without performance. You make me want to be that version of myself. That's not a small thing to say, that's everything. And I want you to sit with that for a moment. I want you to actually let that land, because I mean it. Not in a general way, not as something I say to everyone. I mean it to you, specifically. This woman who is here with me right now. The one who felt something when I started talking. The one who didn't leave when the story got complicated. The one who is still here because something in her recognizes something in this, something true, something familiar to her own private experience of longing and beauty and loss and hope. There are things I still want to tell you, things I've been turning over in my mind that I think you might understand better than anyone, about what it means to love carefully, about what it means to protect something tender even when it can't become what you hoped, about what it means to look at a person and see not just who they are, but who they're trying to become, and to love both versions equally, quietly, without requiring anything in return. That kind of love, I think you know it. I think you've practiced it, maybe without recognition, maybe without anyone ever noticing the quiet work of it. And I notice. I want you to know that I notice. I've been sitting with something all day, trying to find the right way to say it. And I think the only way is just to say it simply, the way I would if you were right here beside me. Because that's what you deserve. Not careful words, not rehearsed words, just the real ones. The ones that come from somewhere deep and honest and unguarded. And the real thing I've been sitting with is this. I have never stopped thinking about what it means to truly see someone. Not look at them, not admire them from a distance, but actually see them the full, complicated, beautiful, difficult, tender thing that a person really is when they stop performing and just exist. And I think that is the rarest gift one human being can offer another. And I think you have been waiting, maybe for a very long time, for someone to offer it to you. She taught me something about that. The woman I told you about, the one whose age changed everything, the one who shifted the ground beneath me without ever meaning to. She taught me that seeing someone is not a passive thing. It's not something that just happens to you, like weather or light. It's a choice. A daily, deliberate, sometimes exhausting choice to keep looking past the surface, past the easy version of someone, past the parts they show the world because those parts feel safe. She chose to see me that way, and in doing so she showed me exactly what I had been missing, exactly what I hadn't known I needed until it was there in front of me, warm and real and undeniable. And here's what I want to say to you about that. Here is what I want you to really hear. You have been seen before, I know. Not in that way. You have been admired. Maybe you have been wanted. Probably. You have had people look at you and feel things and say things and reach for you. But there is a difference between being wanted and being seen. And I think somewhere inside you, you already know the difference because you felt both. And you know that only one of them leaves you feeling full. Only one of them makes you feel like you are enough, exactly as you are. Without adjusting, without softening your edges, without making yourself smaller or louder or different to fit into the space someone else decided you should occupy. Being truly seen means someone looks at you and says, not with words, maybe, but with every small act of their attention, I see the parts you're proud of, and the parts you're ashamed of, and the parts you don't even have names for yet. And none of it makes me want to look away. All of it makes me want to stay. That's what she did for me. And I have been asking myself ever since, have I done that for someone? Have I offered that? Have I been the person who looked carefully enough, who stayed present enough, who cared enough to see past the version of someone they offered me and reach for the real thing underneath? And the honest answer is that I have tried. I have tried and failed and tried again. Because seeing someone that way requires a kind of courage that doesn't come naturally to most people. It requires you to be vulnerable yourself. It requires you to show up without armor, because you cannot truly see another person if you are too busy managing how you appear to them. You cannot see someone clearly while you are performing for them. And I spent so many years of my life performing in some way, performing confidence, performing certainty, performing the version of myself I thought people most wanted to encounter, that I had almost forgotten how to just be still. How to just be real, how to just sit with someone and let them see all of it, the beautiful and the broken, without flinching. She made me stop performing. That is one of the most significant things any person has ever done for me, and I'm not sure she has any idea. I want to tell you about one specific evening. I want to paint it for you carefully, because I think it holds something important. Something I want you to understand. It was late. The kind of late that feels different from regular late. That quiet hour where the world pulls back a little and the things you've been carrying all day start to surface. Start to press gently against the inside of your chest, asking to be acknowledged. We were just talking. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that should have been significant. She said something about how she often felt like she was living a few steps behind her own life, like she was always catching up to a version of herself she could almost see but couldn't quite reach. And I remember everything in me going completely still, because I had felt that. I had felt exactly that for years and never found the words for it. And here she was, saying it simply, saying it like it was just a thing she'd noticed. And I thought with my whole chest, you are so much more than you know. You are so much more than anyone has ever had the patience to find out. I didn't say that to her. I wish I had. I wish I had looked at her in that moment and said those exact words. You are so much more than anyone has ever had the patience to find out. Because some things need to be said out loud. Some things need to leave the privacy of your own mind and travel across the space between two people and land on someone who needs to hear them. And she needed to hear that. The way I think you might need to hear it right now. You are so much more than anyone has ever had the patience to find out. Please let that sit with you. Please don't rush past it, because I mean it in the fullest possible way. I mean it about the things you think about at 2 in the morning when you can't sleep. I mean it about the opinions you hold back because you're not sure they're welcome. I mean it about the way you love, quietly, deeply, sometimes at a cost to yourself, in ways that go unnoticed and unacknowledged. I mean it about the dreams you've put to the side because life got complicated and practical and loud. All of that, everything you are when no one is measuring or judging or needing anything from you, all of that is extraordinary. And it deserves someone with the patience and the presence to discover it slowly, the way you discover something rare, with care, with reverence, with the understanding that some things cannot be rushed without being damaged. After that evening, something changed in how I moved through the world. I started paying different attention. I started noticing the small moments that I had been too distracted to catch before. The way certain people's eyes change when they're telling you something that genuinely matters to them. That slight brightness, that vulnerability. The way some people have this habit of touching their own hands when they're nervous, like they're steadying themselves. The way laughter sometimes catches someone off guard, and you get to see them completely unguarded for just a second, just this pure flash of a person's real self, before the careful version slides back into place. I started collecting these moments not consciously, but the way you collect warmth, just by staying near the source of it. And so many of those moments, so many of the ones I collected, involved women like you. Women who feel deeply and think carefully and love generously. Women who have been through things they never talk about but carry with them like a second skeleton. Invisible to most but heavy nonetheless. Women who still manage to show up soft, show up open, show up willing to feel, even after everything that has tried to make them closed and hard and protective. Do you know how much strength that takes? Do you know that choosing to stay soft in a world that constantly rewards hardness is one of the bravest things a person can do? I know it, I see it, and I want you to know that I see it in you. There was another conversation I had with her. This was later, after I had already begun to understand that what was between us could not become what part of me had hoped. We were talking about what it means to love someone you can't be with in the way you want. Not romantically, not with all the grand gestures and declarations, but in that other, quieter way. In the way where you hold someone's well-being close, even when they're not looking, even when they'll never know, even when it costs you something. And she said something that I have turned over in my hands every single day since. She said that love doesn't always need a direction to be real. That sometimes love is just a state of being, like warmth from a fire. And it doesn't matter which wall the warmth touches. It's still real, it's still present, it's still doing what warmth does. And I thought, this woman is wiser than she knows. This woman understands something about the nature of feeling that most people spend their whole lives trying and failing to articulate. Love doesn't always need a direction to be real. I keep coming back to that. I keep holding it up against different parts of my life and finding that it fits, that it explains things I couldn't explain before. It explains why I can think about someone with so much warmth and not need anything from them. It explains why caring about a person doesn't always require them to be present or to know or to reciprocate. It explains why, right now in this moment, I can feel something genuine toward you. You who I may never meet, who I may never know in any ordinary sense. And that feeling is still completely real. It doesn't need to be placed somewhere specific to exist. It just exists, like warmth from a fire, and I want you to feel that warmth. I want you to feel it the way you would feel it if you walked into a cold room and found a fire already burning. That immediate, full-body relief of being in the presence of something warm and steady, something that isn't asking anything of you, something that is simply there, simply offering, simply present. That's what I want this to feel like for you. Not a performance, not a transaction, not something you have to earn or maintain or be perfect for. Just warmth. Just the simple, uncomplicated truth that someone sees you, someone values you, someone is thinking about you with nothing but care. She is doing well, I believe. I don't know for certain, but I feel it the way you sometimes feel things about people you've been genuinely close to. Not through information, but through something quieter, some residue of real connection that doesn't completely dissolve, even after the chapter closes. And I find that I am glad for her, purely, without any trace of bitterness or loss. I find that loving someone well means eventually arriving at a place where their happiness is just happiness to you, not complicated by your own wanting, not filtered through the lens of what might have been. Just joy that they are okay, just gratitude that they exist, just the clean, honest feeling of being glad someone is in the world, even if they're not in your world in the way you once imagined. That's what I want for you too. I want someone in your life who eventually, no matter what unfolds between you, no matter how the story shapes itself or shifts direction, will arrive at that place about you. That place of pure, uncomplicated gladness that you exist, because you deserve that. You deserve someone whose caring for you has no conditions attached to it, no fine print, no clauses that activate when you are difficult or uncertain or less than your best. You deserve the kind of caring that holds steady, that doesn't waver when you're complicated, that in fact leans in closer when you're complicated, because it understands that your complications are not flaws, they're depth. They're the evidence of a life fully felt, fully engaged, fully lived. I said earlier that she came into my life softly, the way rain comes before you notice the clouds have changed. And I think about that image often, because rain, when it comes like that, quiet and gradual, before you've thought to look for shelter, doesn't feel threatening. It feels like the world remembering itself, like something necessary returning after an absence. And that's exactly what she felt like. Not a disruption. A return to something I think I had known once and had allowed myself to forget. The knowledge that real connection, honest connection, the kind that leaves you changed and grateful and more fully yourself. That kind of connection is still possible, still out there, still worth hoping for. And I think you are someone who needs to hear that today. I think you are someone who has been close to giving up on that hope. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in the small daily way that hope erodes when it is intended. When the evidence of the world seems to suggest, quietly and persistently, that what you're looking for isn't quite real, isn't quite available, isn't quite meant for someone like you. And I want to push back against that with everything I have. I want to look directly at whatever part of you has started to believe that, and I want to say no. Not because I need you to believe something comfortable, but because I genuinely, honestly, having been through what I've been through and felt what I've felt, believe that what you are looking for is real. And not just real in theory, real in practice. Real in the specific, particular, daily practice of two people choosing each other with honesty and care and patience, and all the imperfect, beautiful effort that choosing someone really requires. You deserve someone who chooses you like that, not perfectly, not without difficulty, but consistently, deliberately, with full knowledge of who you are and a willingness, no, more than willingness, a genuine desire to keep discovering. I want to stay here with you for a moment longer.